BBOR, Black Box, Online Radio, in Boston, Massachusetts for the holiday season, going back to West Virginia pretty soon. But you know what? It came to my attention that today is December 20th, and we haven't talked about the Zodiac Killer too recently, but this is a very important day in Zodiac activity because December 20th is the anniversary of the Lake Herman Road murders, December 20th, 1968 to be precise, and this is heavily regarded as the first event in Zodiac activity, although some people insist that the Sherry Joe Bates incident on October 30th of 1966 is also part of the Zodiac series of murders that were committed in the late 60s and possibly going into the early 70s. And this is a total anniversary upload, just talking about some things that we've dealt with over the years. But I have to say, though, that's one of the things that is so mysterious about the Zodiac Killer, that we aren't even sure how many people were murdered. And because the Zodiac claimed responsibility for so many other things, it's very difficult to find out what really was the Zodiac doing, or was this somebody else? Was the Zodiac taking credit for other people's murders? And what honestly happened? But I'd say, though, we've covered a lot of territory this year on the Zodiac Killer. However, I'm going to be doing some things that in the next year, 2020. One of the things I would like to do is to get a copy of Thomas Henry Horn's The Great Zodiac Killer Hoax, and he has 3 books out about it, to actually just read through all of them, share the journey with you guys here on this channel. I think that could be a very beneficial discussion that we could have about his things, as well as a certain individual in Zodiac activity named Hal Snook. Explore some things with him. But talking about Lake Herman Road today, I have an article here from ZodiacRevisited.com, and this one is by Michael Cole. And just to share some things about Lake Herman Road. The street view of Google Maps is just plain cool, I have to admit. I'm a little bit surprised that Lake Herman Road is in the database. Oh, I'm not surprised at all that they would have something like that in the database of things like Google Maps. Do you think the only things that are not there are like the far-off regions of the Côte d'Ivoire or something like that? I was in a hotel once, and there were these 2 women selling waffles, like a little food cart out front, and that was on Google Maps. Like, you could see that there's a waffle stand right in front of the hotel. They have almost everything. And this guy says again that it's not surprising because Lake Herman Road is so close to Silicon Valley. So, have a virtual look around December 20th, 1968 crime scene, and the images that they have here are taken in May of 2012. So right now, I'm just kind of having a small little look at Lake Herman Road. It definitely does not look anything like the way that I imagined it, and Thomas Horan talks about this, sort of saying that it was something that's kind of just more of like a parking lot. But one of the reasons why some people would want to talk about Lake Herman Road the way they would is that it is more like someplace that is secluded, and I think all parties are trying to say that this is somewhat of a secluded area. It varies, though, depending on what they believe the motivation for something like this was. But yes, it seems very far out. Even in 2011, almost nothing around. And, to be honest, this is one of the reasons why the Zodiac evaded capture, is because they were in far-off locations. But what we can really say about Lake Herman Road is that this is a rather odd incident in Zodiac activity because both of the victims were murdered, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday. Both of them did not survive, and they couldn't provide a lot of information about the Zodiac. They couldn't help out with things because we had, of course, Michael Mageau surviving Blue Rock Springs, which occurred on July 4th of 1969. Brian Hartnell survived Lake Berryessa on September 27th of 1969. Paul Stein, though, did pass away on October 11th, right, of 69. So Paul Stein would be also in the category of someone who was murdered and wasn't able to help identify anything. But I would say that with Lake Herman Road, if one of the victims had survived, perhaps they could have revealed information to the authorities that would have led to this person's capture, whoever was the perpetrator. So no matter what we're dealing with here, when we talk about the Zodiac Killer, a lot of people want to be like, the Zodiac was somebody who was very smart, very intelligent, very thoughtful, methodical, good at planning and such. But at the same time, with all of these unsolved mysteries, I think the perpetrators are very often just lucky. I mean, if one of the victims had survived and provided the police officers with some additional information after Lake Herman Road, this could have been a very different story. But that didn't happen. Or if there had been more witnesses, if there had been more people involved who saw what was going on, once again, that didn't happen. And it's like, there's a certain sense of intelligence that is going on with the Zodiac killer. But at the same time, he was also very fortunate. Whether it's one person. One of the things on this channel we have entertained is the group murder theory. I still insist it feels like we're dealing with the psychology of multiple people, but if we can look at some things that are closer to the facts as opposed to speculation and such, we can say that the Zodiac was not a sexually motivated serial killer, not trying to satisfy any type of urge, which is something that is rather bizarre, but at the same time we have it all the same. If there's any sort of power tripping that's going on, it's done in the way that it's like getting off on the deception, taunting in the police, and making the public think that there's this terror out there, that there's this evil force that could kill them at any time. It's that putting out that image to the world. That's where the sort of power tripping is coming from. Almost someone who wants to be like, I'm in a superior form of intelligence, rather than someone who is killing for sexual motivations. But that's the reason why a lot of people think that there is no pattern in the Zodiac activity. Look at the dates we talked about. December 20th, July 4th, September 27th, October 11th, and then Sherry Jo Bates, if you want to include that, October 30th, 1966. I tried hard this year to put something together. I was like adding up all the numbers of those things, and I thought maybe it would reveal some alphabetic sequence. There are a variety of possibilities that those things could be, but when you really want to look at the events that are taking place, what we can say is, if the Zodiac was not a sexually motivated serial killer, I believe it was Michael Butterfield who said that there's no need for a consistent type of pattern. If the Zodiac is being very thoughtful and methodical, someone who is, as we said, trying to get off on the type of power tripping, as opposed to sexual domination, there's not a need for a pattern. The sexually motivated serial killers find a way to do their business, and they find a way that works for them, so they keep doing the same thing over and over again, because they're just trying to satisfy a sexual urge. They got an urge to kill. They're trying to satisfy that feeling, whereas someone who would be a non-sexually motivated killer would not need that. So that's kind of one of the things that we've learned this year. And by we, I mean, well, me and what we've talked about on this channel. The other things that we're going to be exploring in the future is we have a Q&A coming up. I've been meaning to do it for a while, but we've had a lot of great comments come in. I mean, the majority of comments that I'd say I get are probably about the disappearance of Brandon Lawson, and the second one would be the Zodiac killer. The third would be the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. I can see that people are very much involved with this case, and it's a very thought-provoking mystery. There's so many mysterious elements. And I would say if you look at any suspect in the Zodiac case, whether it's Arthur Lee Allen, Ross Sullivan, Lawrence Kane, Richard Gaikowski, Louis Myers, if you look at any of the suspects, I don't know about you guys, but I get the feeling like this just doesn't fit. None of these answers fit too well. None of these people really just like, oh my gosh, it has to be him. I don't get that feeling from looking through any of this stuff, that this person was the Zodiac killer. And that's one of the reasons why we're going to read some of the books of Thomas Horan, as well as anything else we can get our hands on. I mean, sadly, libraries haven't been too helpful for me in providing some of these Zodiac killer materials. But at this time, we can also remember that 51 years ago today, we lost David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen. And no matter what, let's honor their memory. And we're going to keep exploring the Zodiac case and talk more about it, but just to say, rest in peace to those two, and love and prayers to their families. And that's all for me now. This is our mini upload today. As I mentioned, this is just an anniversary update, and just to say some condolences and honor the memories of Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday. Until next time, if you have anything to say at all about the Zodiac Killer, please drop a comment below. I would love to hear from you, and everybody take care.